Welcome to the Lay Low Pod, the podcast that keeps it real while you figure things out. I'm Erin, and let's lay low. If you're in a season of becoming where life doesn't look how it used to, but not quite how it will, you're in the right place. Sometimes to grow, you have to lay low. Hello. Welcome to the Lay Low Pod. My name is Erin, and thank you for laying low with me today. I want to just start off by a little watching and reading. I hope you guys are liking this part because I'm middle-aged probably not even middle-aged. I'm 44. So is that late middle-age? I don't know. I don't even care. I'm happy. I'm loving life. I saw a reel this week actually because I'm 44 and it was a reel from Oprah. And she said when she turned 44 was the time that she really truly believed in herself and believed that her life was just starting. And when I saw this reel this week, I thought, wow, 44, this is a year. And I feel the exact same way. I feel like I am just getting started and have so much to do. So I don't even care whatever age I am. That's not going to change. But at age 44, after a long day of work, I'm watching and I'm reading. That's how it is. I watched a crazy movie on Peacock this weekend, and it's called Obsession. It's a horror movie, a scary movie. It was huge in the box office, and now it's on Peacock. I miss going to the movies. I love going to the movies. I don't know why I don't go to the movies more, because I love the popcorn. I love the snacks. I love it. But for some reason, I go like twice a year. And my friend Michelle, though, she goes all the time. I always think about her and think, I need to ask Michelle to go to the movies with me. But anyway, Obsession killed it at the box office. It's on Peacock now. It is one of those movies where at the end you are thinking, what did I just watch? It's wild. It's about a guy who makes like a wish, kind of like that old movie Big with Tom Hanks, where he makes the wish that he wants to be big. And it was that like little game outside the store where you put the quarter in and you make a wish. Okay, think of that, but a little different. But this guy on the movie, he makes a wish that the girl that he is in love with, he wants her to be obsessed with him. And the wish comes true. And it is a wild story. It's scary and it's kind of out there, but yeah, it was entertaining. Also for the girls, I am watching on Hulu House of Stassi, which is she's a reality girl from Bravo that is now a mom and kind of in her reinvention stage. And that is something I've really been loving too. Reading, I'm starting a new book. And so I don't really want to tell you too much about it yet because I'm just starting it. I was chatting with some friends and somebody told me about it. So I just downloaded it. It's called Surviving the Saints by Martha Beck. She was a BYU professor and she wrote this book. So I'm excited to listen to that. That's on my agenda this week and I'll report back. But I want to know what you guys are watching and reading. I was just even at the dinner table with my family. My brother's in town this weekend. And I was like, what's everybody watching and reading? I love to hear. So if you have a great book or a great something to share it with me, I would love that. It's Sunday today, which is not typically how my weekend goes when it comes to the pod. I typically record on Friday or Saturday. I do all of my editing on Sundays and get the podcast scheduled to post for Tuesday morning. So I really don't have to worry about it during the work week. If I had to worry about this during the work week, it just wouldn't get done because it's just so busy right now. But that is typically how my weekend goes. And I was planning on recording the pod yesterday, which was Saturday. I woke up and quickly realized that the power had gone out in my house overnight, which doesn't really happen very often, but a brand new apartment complex, literally a couple blocks from my house, burned down the day before. Like a crazy fire. It displaced, I think, 300 units. So really bad. I just figured the power outage was connected to this fire. And I realized that my ceiling fan wasn't working. So I just thought, okay, the power surge blew my ceiling fan, whatever. So went about my morning. I came home from the dog walk and recorded the podcast. And you guys know I sit in my bedroom, I look out my window, and I just kind of zone out. And so I recorded the podcast, and immediately when it was done, I think it was like 45 minutes, and I went into the software and realized that there must have been some glitch because it was really weird at the end of recording. It timed out, and I had never had that happen before, but I figured, okay, that podcast is still going to be there where I can edit it. But when I went into the software, I quickly saw that it was not there. And that 45-minute podcast that I recorded was gone, which that has not happened to me yet. I mean, we all know that I'm not tech savvy. I have been very clear about that, but oh my gosh, when you realize that 45 minutes of something then really strong that you've been sharing is gone, it kind of is like a kick in the gut. But while I was recording the pod, I also was getting extremely hot. So I finished the podcast, realized it was gone, and thought, oh my gosh, I can't even deal with this right now because it's so hot in my house. Realized the air conditioning was not working. And so I spent the rest of the day dealing with a tech coming out, fixing the AC, and the day just didn't go as planned. And sometimes you have a day like that where you think, oh my gosh, I thought everything was going to go one way, and then boom, 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 boom happened. And I said to a friend that I think that the universe is testing me today, because whenever I have a day like that where everything is kind of going wrong, there have been times in my life where those experiences all stacked on each other would make me kind of spiral and maybe make me crash out, where I'm just like, oh my God, feel sorry for me. I'm the victim. This really sucks. We've all had days like that, I'm sure. But yesterday I stayed really calm, and I just thought, okay, yeah, this is not ideal. I wasted a whole Saturday dealing with all this, but I'm okay. This is all things that can be solved. I have really good people in my corner helping me, and everything will get figured out. But the podcast was in the back of my mind all day. And it was a topic that I shared 2 different stories. And my first instinct was, okay, maybe I wasn't supposed to share those stories, or maybe I need to rethink how I shared those stories in a different way to be a little more sensitive. And that was on my mind the rest of the day. And by the end of the night, I realized that maybe the day wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe I have a big lesson to learn in how the day went. And especially with the podcast, it made me stop and think, okay, I'm not supposed to share that this week. I'm supposed to share something else. And I am going to share what was really on my mind all week this week. And so I'm going to just really pivot right now and kind of share with you my thoughts about the podcast right now and where we are. I started the podcast at the beginning of May, and it was really something that was in the back of my head for about 6 months. But you think of all the reasons that it will be too much to fit into your life, or how am I going to do this by myself? I talked to a friend about maybe doing the podcast with her. And I just kind of got to a point in the early part of May where I just said, okay, Erin, you're just going to do this and hit record and just let it go wherever it's going to go. And I remember telling you guys on the first episode, maybe this is going to be 10 episodes. Maybe it's going to be 100. Maybe the sky's the limit. We just don't know. I had no expectation of how this was going to go. I started Lay Low really to tell my story. I had a lot of stuff inside of me that I just needed to make peace with. I needed to let things out, experiences and things that I had felt connected to shame and connected to grief and connected to guilt. And I really just started this as a place to share what was inside of me that I wanted to make peace with. You guys have heard me basically confess all these weeks in a row, confessing stuff about my divorce, about my faith, about dating and my career and mistakes I've made and lessons that I've learned. And honestly, just ways that I've lived my life that have tried to have a healthy way of feeling free. And I thought that that's what the purpose of this podcast was. And I'm quickly realizing that I don't think that anymore. And I love a moment where I can change my mind. That was one of the first things that I learned in therapy was, Erin, you're allowed to change your mind. And now this podcast is really morphing into something extremely special for me. And it started as I have introduced guests. And I'm getting such great feedback about the guests that we've had on so far. When I first had our first guest, instantly people were telling me they love the guests. My son too, he just said, Mom, I love when you do the guests. And so I was thinking, okay, I love the guests too. I kind of have been thinking that I'll do a solo episode one week and then the next week I'll do a guest and we'll just switch off off that way. And then we got to this last week where my friend Ed Terrace was the guest. And I have to tell you, the feedback from this podcast last week has been incredible. If you haven't listened to it yet, it's called The Last Second Chance. Ed shares his story of addiction and recovery and changing his life. And he was so vulnerable leading up to this podcast. We talked about it for weeks and weeks because he was really nervous and he wasn't sure how it was going to come out, but he knew he had something to say. And he wasn't sure how it was going to affect people in his life, but he just had to trust his gut and go forward with the pod. And in the last week, it has been incredible to see the change in him, the support he has gotten. He has shared text messages with me, screenshots, his family group chat. And this has not just been healing for himself, it's been healing for his family. And it's been healing for people that were affected by his choices. And it was an opportunity to really make peace. And I don't think Ed realized that the peace that he would get from sharing his story would also ripple into his family the way that it did. I have seen this lightness in him this week, and I have seen him just feel so much love. And I responded to one of his texts and I said, it sounds cheesy, but the truth will set you free. And I have felt that in myself, but seeing it in Ed has really changed me. So I'm realizing now with this podcast that people don't just need advice, they need permission to tell their truth. And I really feel strongly about opening up this podcast to people who want to have that same feeling of peace as they share their truth. The Laylo Pod is going to be lots of things, but no matter what, it is a safe place. It is a place of no judgment. It's a place of grace. It's a place of honest conversations, growth, healing. None of us are perfect. We are imperfectly perfect, and that's how we want it. And I feel strongly that I need to invite each of you personally to think about this and think about for yourself if there's anything in your life, anything that you have experienced, anything from your childhood, adulthood, relationships, career, anything that has really been hard and you have felt has held you back, but you've learned the lessons and now you want to share and release it so that you can grow. I want you to each think about if there's something in your life that this could be healing. And if it's not for you, is there somebody in your life that could benefit from this? A child, a friend, a loved one. I want this to be a place where we can speak freely. And one thing that I was really hung up on at the beginning of the pod was how telling my truth was going to affect people in my life. Because my choices have affected a lot of people. They've affected my kids. They've affected family members, friendships. And I just didn't know how to navigate that. But now I've just realized that two people can just experience the exact same event differently and have two different stories. And truly, the truth lies in between. And if we quiet ourselves where we feel ashamed to speak our truth because we don't know how the other person viewed it, if we silence ourselves in that way, it really is going to just stay inside of you. You shove it under the rug, you just go on with your life and you leave it there. And those feelings of sadness, guilt, shame, anger, they stay in you and that affects you. It affects your energy. It affects your vibe. And I want you to be brave to share your story, knowing that it is your story and the other people in the story have their views of how it went and they are welcome to have their voice in their way. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't tell your side. This isn't a courtroom. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about telling your experience honestly so that you can learn the lessons, make peace with it, and let it go so that you can live your best life. Lay Low exists to remind people that their hardest chapters don't have to be their identity. And Ed is the perfect example of that. He's paid his dues. He's done his time. He's literally suffered almost 20 years of his life to addiction, and he's been clean for 4 years now, and he deserves to let that go. He deserves the peace and the healing. And telling his story was what he needed to do to get there. And in just 1 week, to see the physical, emotional, spiritual change in him, it makes me so happy and excited to see what's next in store for him. And that is what is inspiring me. That is what I want more of. I want more moments like that, more stories like Ed's, more ways that we can feel connection and learn and grow, but to truly have the purpose be peace. I've been thinking a lot lately about kind of my career and what I'm doing and where I want things to go. And I have this business coach who has been with me for almost a year. And we talked a year ago about my business and how I saw myself exiting my business, which who knows if it's a few years or many years. She and I have talked about that over the last year, and it's gotten really serious lately. And so this has been on my mind where I'm 44, my kids are grown. I have a lot of years left in me to work, to grow, to build. And where do I exactly see that going? So that is where I am. And I just can't help but think about Lay Low and how that fits into my future. I think about getting back to my book and possibly doing some kind of community event or retreat or some sort. I want to help people navigate change. I want to help people let go of shame. I want to help people grow because truly it is never too late to learn these lessons and to make peace with your past so that you can live your future. It is never, ever, ever too late. I don't know exactly where this podcast goes, but I know what I want, and I want people to feel like I left them better than I found them. I want people to feel seen, understood, hopeful, brave, better than when they came. I know that thinking about coming on the podcast is scary. And I know that it feels uncertain. And if you're like me, what exactly is going to come out of your mouth when that microphone hits record? Some days I have no idea. Maybe today's one of those days. I know how you feel where it's scary, but I also know there is so much peace in sharing your stories. There's people that I've talked to about this podcast. I have a list of about 20 people that I am in talks about coming on as guests. And it's a process. This is not something where just you apply to it and then we hit record. We're working through some of these topics together, and I'm helping guide the conversation. It really is not something that you're alone in at all by any means. And it's really a conversation that we're talking that whole week before we record. We're in communication about how this is going to go. And I've talked to people who are really nervous about the other people in the story. I have a friend going through a major custody issue that I know so badly wants to come on and share. And hopefully the time will be right later, but I know she's worried about how it'll affect her kids. And when I hear that, I understand because I've been there too. But I think for me, with my boys and their ages, I hope that I'm an example to them, that they are free to speak their minds and they're free to tell their stories. And I still really hope that both of my boys come on here and share something because I love seeing them grow. And I hope that they can look at me as just an example of bravery, of speaking the truth. I have another friend who reached out this week telling me how much she loved the pod. And she goes, I'm in the thick of it with motherhood. And I know exactly what she meant because, oh my gosh, when you have young kids and they're running all over to T-ball and dance and you're trying to keep them fed and alive and their school not calling with tardies, I know that to me is in the thick of it. And there are a lot of you guys in the thick of it right now where you might not be ready to come on here as a guest, but you are at home listening and you're at home connecting in so many different ways. And it's been really beautiful too to see how some stay-at-home mom with little kids can feel so connected to a guest who recovered from an addiction, even though she's never lived that life, but she got so many things from listening to his story that she felt is helping her own life. And even though she might not be ready to come on the podcast as a guest, she is on the other side where she is learning and growing in her way by listening to the stories that are shared here. And when you think of it like that, there are seasons. There are seasons in this. And maybe you're in a season where you could come on here and share your story. And maybe you're in a season where you're not there right now, and that's okay. This is a place where you are able to grow in both ways. You're able to grow by sharing, by listening, and by just talking. And I think just getting all these messages throughout the week, the texts and about the pod has quickly become one of my highlights. And I fit them in around work or at the end of the night where, I'm unwinding and I'm going through my messages, and each one really impacts me. And I hope you know that. I have a friend thinking about coming on who, oh man, had a really hard childhood. And when I say hard, it was hard, really hard. As a grown man now, I know he has seen his life personally affected by a lot of that trauma from his childhood that was not his choice, was not his fault by any means, but it affected his future. And I know for a fact if he came on here and shared his story from his childhood and what he has learned, the freedom that would come from that. So you guys just know, as I'm talking to you, I'm secretly manifesting that you are going to, at the right moment, have your 5 seconds of bravery where you text and say, okay, Erin, I'm ready. Or you get on laylowpod.com and you apply and you say, okay, let's just talk about this. Is there a story here? Maybe we start talking and you're like, yeah, I think I'm okay. But I think together we can dig in and find something you can heal from. I lost that 45-minute episode yesterday. And let me tell you, when I figured it out, I basically said, of course, this was the episode that I lost. But we're going to get those stories. We're going to get them probably in a different way that maybe is a little more sensitive. Maybe it just wasn't the right time to share those stories, but today is the time to share this. I don't think I lost anything. I think that I just had a moment to force myself and to get serious with myself about where do I want this to go? And that's where I was sitting yesterday. And today I feel so much peace. And I need to tell you guys this. I need to tell you where I see this going, because there's no Laylo without you. And I want this to be a community that we can really be proud of. It's really making me feel a sense of purpose by helping people heal, helping people grow. Somebody was like, you should be a therapist. Somebody told me that this week. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to be a therapist. I don't want to go back to school, but I can do this. I can make this my way of leaving people better than I found them. That's something extremely important to me. I want everybody to come into my world and I leave them better than I found them. That's what I want for the rest of my life. And I want to surround myself with people who can do the same, and that where we can make this little world of progression and healing inside a world that's very dark and scary. There's so much good. There's so much good here, but we need to surround ourselves with that positivity, and that starts here. Thank you for letting me share this with you today. I know it wasn't as expected. So next week, it's going to be a really fun episode. One of my best friends is going to be coming on. She is actually somebody that we were going to do the podcast together, but with our schedules, we both are business owners and live crazy lives. And there was no way we could coordinate our schedules to do a weekly podcast. But I told her in May when I hit record, I said, girl, you can come on anytime you want. And I'm excited that she's going to be on for the first time next week. And it's a fun episode, but I'm hoping it's the start of her feeling comfortable to share some of her stories, because she has a story to tell and she has some healing to experience. And I want that so bad for her because I deeply, deeply love her. She's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. And in ways, I think that's what makes our friendship special, because interesting, she's the one in my life who kind of holds me the most accountable. But she's going to be on next week talking about a fun topic, and you'll get to know her. But I hope everybody is having a good summer, that you can put this podcast on while you're doing a fun family road trip, or mowing the lawn, or you're sitting out at the pool, or whatever you're doing this fun summer. August comes and you feel like summer's slipping away. But to me, summer goes till Labor Day, and we still have 2 months of summer. So let's make the most of it. I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to submit your questions, your listener questions. And if you want to apply to be on the podcast, laylowpod.com, you can fill out the form for both of those things there. And I would love to talk about that with you. Thank you for laying low with me, and we'll see you next week.